Thank you and good evening. Good evening. Tonight is the City Commission meeting for January 5th, 2021. This is the first meeting of the new year. Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year. Thank you all for attending tonight, whether you're here in the chambers or virtually watching from TV. I am going to begin the meeting tonight with asking everyone who is either at the chambers to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Please be seated. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Moritas?
Here.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, present.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Here.
Mayor Trentals?
Here. So tonight, just so that those who wish to see the meeting both virtually and in person, the public will be able to participate virtually by going to fortlauderdale.gov/FLTV, on youtube.com/City of Fort Lauderdale, as well as on Comcast Channel 78 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. You know, I've always wanted to know, if you're not already on those channels, how are you hearing me? Okay. Anyway, and if you wish to speak on any agenda item, please click on the following link, which is bit.ly/virtual CC meetings. That's bit.ly. Excuse me, let me repeat that. bit.ly/virtual CC meetings. That's if you wish to speak. Before we begin the meeting, I would ask that everyone please join me in a moment of silence with regard to in recognizing those who recently passed away in our community, who each and every one of them made a mark in the history of this community. First is Mr. Pio Erasi, who for many, many years, 30 years, I'm told, served as the head of the Galt Ocean Mile Association. But beyond that, was certainly a wonderful friend and someone who really was committed to the excellence of our community, who passed away over the Christmas holiday. Robert Skip Johnson, another city pioneer who for many years at the beginning of the birth of our city helped contribute to its culture and its advancement. And Thomas Allen McPherson, a Florida state senator, and Roseanne Gieselman. Roseanne is the lady who designed our city logo. And she passed away over the holidays as well. So please join me in sharing this moment of silence in remembrance of these individuals. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mayor, quick question.
Yes.
As we're, engaging in this virtual format, if each the start of each meeting, if you could just give us a sense of like who's in the room in the chamber, even if it's just we've got multiple city staff members and a few members of public, or we've got 15 members of public and some are waiting outside to get in, or anything like that would be helpful if you don't mind.
Sure. We have three members of the public, one. Former Congressman Ron Klein is here. He says his hello to you, Commissioner.
Very nice. Okay.
And no one's banging down the door to come in here tonight. The rest are just staff members who have nothing else to do tonight and want to see our proceedings, and then those of the rest who are committed to being here. So we have our IT gentleman, we have Jeff, we have our city manager, we have our city attorney, plus other staff members who are on the perimeter of the room. They miss you a whole lot, Commissioner Sorensen. They wish you were here joining. Okay. Instead of in your remote undisclosed location.
That's right. And how many, Mayor, just so the public's aware, how many seats do we have in the chamber? Like how many members of the public can come to the chamber right now?
About 15.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, any other questions before we proceed? No? Okay, great. So please refrain from any behavior that is disruptive, distractive, profane, or inhibits the meeting in any way. I'm not referring to you, Commissioner. While you're on the phone waiting for your opportunity to speak, please mute the meeting's broadcast on whichever station you're watching to avoid delays with the broadcast. I will call upon you when it is your turn to speak and also notify you when your time has expired. City staff is automatically added speakers in the to listen mode only, and you will be unmuted to speak when recognized. Once you have completed speaking, you will be muted and may either hang up to exit the meeting or stay connected to listen to the remainder of the meeting. Okay, so we have no agenda announcements. So can I ask someone from the commission to please move to approve the minutes and the agenda?
Move.
Move. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any corrections, Vice Mayor?
No, actually not one. Thank you, Mayor. And
Okay,
just
wow.
note, but please know that I did check.
I'm sure you did. Okay, so with that, can you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the minutes and tonight's agenda are now approved. So for those of you who are listening to our meeting for the first time, we normally begin our meetings before we get to the regular business. We call upon individuals to participate in certain presentations where we recognize either persons or organizations or events in a special way to bring out the significance of their achievement or their involvement in our community. So tonight we just have one such presentation. It's regarding Teen Bridge trip leaders. These are Nayani Jones, Desenia Barcinas, Kayla Quinn, and Erica Robinson, who they will be appearing virtually, and they will be presented a recognition of community members' participation in the virtual Teen Town Hall Forum. This is the City of Fort Lauderdale Teen Recreation Intramural Passport Bridge Builders Program in collaboration with the Central Broward Teen Alliance Coalition. Who from staff will be undertaking this endeavor?
That is a good question. Mr. Clerk, do you have
John Quinton from Parks and Rec is on the meeting virtually, and I believe they're ready to go.
Very good. Mr. Quinn.
Good evening, Mayor Trentalis, Commissioner Glassman, Commissioner Moritas, Commissioner McKenzie, Commissioner Sorensen, our honored guests, and to each and one of you in your respective places. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Desenia Barcenas, and I am a senior at Dillard High School, a captain of the varsity volleyball team and a proud teen representative of the Bridge Builders Mentoring Program for the City of Fort Lauderdale. Bridge Builders is a fun and exciting program for teens who seek to be involved with their community. Our mission for Bridge Builders is to build future teen leaders with skills, knowledge, and experiences that prepare us to be effective students and neighbors for a positive change in our community. This is done by instilling the core values of honesty, integrity, respect, accountability, and trust. This is done through mentorship engagement with our city's leaders.
Good evening. My name is Nayani Jones. I am a junior at Dillard 6-12, co-captain of my varsity volleyball team, and a member of the Teen Bridge Builders program. On October 30th, 2020, we held our first annual Teen Town Hall Forum. Our theme was titled "The Old Wise Person Must Build Bridges for the Younger Travelers." This question and answer forum included members of the City of Fort Lauderdale Parks and Recreation's Bridge Builders Program and the Teen Alliance Coalition of Central Brown. Local teams had and cherished the opportunity to speak with elected officials, school board members, community leaders, law enforcement officials, and business owners. Topics of discussion: pandemic experiences, COVID-19 prevention, involvement in positive social movements, economic opportunities, and more. I am Kayla Quinn, a senior at Dilla High School and also a member of the varsity volleyball team and an active member of Bridge Builders. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our guests that participated in our forum. City of Fort Lauderdale Commissioner Robert L. McKenzie, School Board Representative Reverend Osmond, Dr. Reverend Osmond, Supervisor of Election Honorable Joe Scott, Fort Lauderdale Police Department Major Dr. Gregory Salters, FLPD School Resource Officer for Dillard 6 through 12, Officer Ms. Lockwood, Honorable Judge George Odoms, Dr. Broward County 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Registered Marriage and Family Therapist, Mr. Ron Williams, Youth.
Is this live?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, they're having a problem with their microphone, and so we tried to switch over, and we're getting that sound through the camera. So let's see if we can get them back. Ladies, can we let's try again. Let's have you say something through one of the microphones or the camera. Let's see if we can hear you.
Testing.
Okay, that sounds great. Go ahead.
Do you need me to start over?
For the sake of understanding what you said, yeah, I think it's important enough. Go ahead and start over for us. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Kayla Quinn, a senior at Dillard High School and also a member of the varsity volleyball team and an active member of Bridge Builders. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our guests that participated in our forum. City of Fort Lauderdale Commissioner Robert L. McKenzie, School Board Representative Reverend Dr. Osgood, Supervisor of Elections Honorable Guest Joe Scott, Fort Lauderdale Police Department Major Dr. Gregory Salters, FLPD School Resource Officer for Dillard 6 through 12, Officer Henry Lockwood III, Honorable Judge George Odoms, Jr., Broward County 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Registered Marriage and Family Therapist Mr. Ron C. Osborne Williams, Youth Advocate and 2020 Political Candidate Mr. Elijah Manley, Mr. Herb Roach, Chairman of Omega Sci-Fi Lamp Lighters Organization.
Good evening, Mayor Trentilis, Commissioner Glassman, Commissioner Moraes, Commissioner McKenzie, Commissioner Sorensen, our honored guests, and to each and one of you in your respective places. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And congratulations once again. And we appreciate.
Real quick before we got one last thing. I just want to also give these young ladies, recognize them for their plaques. They have been working with us for like the last 3 years, and really proud of them. But this is exactly what this program produces. Well educated and ladies who I know we're going to achieve much. So just give them an extra hand, and thank y'all for joining us and allowing us this time to present.
Well done.
Yeah. All right, all right. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care, and thank you again for your commitment to our community. We appreciate it. Moving ahead, we now begin with the regular agenda for tonight's meeting. We start with what's called the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that are voted on collectively unless an individual commissioner pulls such an item, at which time we will discuss that separately, and an individual from the public who wishes to speak on that item will be allowed to speak on that item at that time. Otherwise, if an item is not pulled, then before we begin the vote, we will invite anyone to speak with regard to any item or items on the consent agenda before we vote on it. So I will begin with Commissioner Moritas. Do you have any consent agenda items which you would like to pull?
Yes, CP4.
What is it again?
CP4.
CP4. Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Couple of questions came up last night at District 2 pre-agenda, so that would be for CM1, CM2, CR2, CP1, CP2. That's it. And also CP4. Thank you.
That's already been pulled by Commissioner Moritas.
Correct. So just to make sure. Thank you.
Are there any items you don't want pulled? Just kidding.
All the rest.
Okay.
All the rest.
Commissioner McKenzie. Are there any items you'd like pulled from the consent agenda?
No, I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sorensen?
No additional.
Okay, great. So other than CM1, CM2, CR2, CP1, CP2, and CP4, is there a member of the public that would like to speak on any of the other consent agenda items before we vote on the consent agenda? Did anybody raise their hand?
I think we have the two cards up there are
Well, we have CR3
and CM9, I believe.
CM9 for questions only. So we have CR3, we have Michael Lefebvre from Brightline. These are all, I believe, associated with Brightline. I think they're just here to respond to questions. Michael Lefebvre and Jose Gonzalez. Is there anything that you want to say, gentlemen, or are you just here to respond to questions? Are any of them on the line? Can you ask one of them if they're just here to respond to questions?
Jose Gonzalez is unmuted. Jose, you there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Both Michael and myself are here just to answer any questions that you may have from the from yourself or the commission, the public. So
I think we're good. I think we're good. Okay. So let us take up CM1. Commissioner, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A bit of a follow-up to the discussion that occurred this afternoon with regards to events. And I've been receiving email correspondence about the Las Olas Art Fair. Again, as I mentioned, comments last night at the District 2 pre-agenda meeting with regards to just the nation sort of seeing some of the activities going on in Fort Lauderdale. We've already heard today that the Elbow Room was fined $15,000 and cited. But are we going to be looking at events like this going forward? I'm sure everyone else received some of the emails I received as well. But I just want to make sure that we're totally comfortable with the way the last Las Olas Art Fair occurred. And I want to make sure that we feel that protocols will be met and this is not going to be a bad event for the city.
Well, I think, Vice Mayor, I think we had already addressed that issue before the break, remember? And I think that we were asked to vote on this tonight in anticipation of their responding to our request to make sure that they have made sufficient presentation to city staff, that they have created a COVID compliant accommodations to ensure the safety of the participants. So is there someone from city staff
Yeah,
that
Mr.
can
Mayor, I can take
respond to that?
I can take a stab at it. So this was an event that has previously been approved. This was here tonight because they're requesting a date change and a date change only to be able to do it this weekend. It would have followed the same process that the other art fairs did by having to submit a safety plan to Broward County. They would subsequently have approved that prior to us approving the event to occur. So this really just moves the event to a different date. But in answer to the Vice Mayor's question, yes, we're aware of some of the concerns that are out there with respect to events. As we responded over the weekend and took an enforcement position, as you mentioned, if we need to do that again this weekend because this event does not follow its safety plan, we're prepared to do that.
Do you have any further questions?
Yes, I'm happy to hear that, Chris. Again, I just want us to be as vigilant as possible and making sure that, that the entire nation doesn't get to see, some of the New Year's Eve shots that they saw from Fort Lauderdale with regards to the. I just think that, numbers have gotten worse since our break. And I just think that we just have to just step it up a notch. And I understand that this is coming back only because of the date change. So yes, we have approved it. But as long as you're, on top of it like that, that's a good thing. Thank you.
Would you like to introduce is it a motion? Would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I would.
And what would that motion be?
To approve.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. CM2, Walk of Fame Committee inductees, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris, do we have any idea? Obviously, these were the recommendations for the 2019. So is 2020, nothing was done at all for the inductees for 2020? And if that's the case, are we planning on doing anything for these folks from way back in 2019?
So we sort of left this one as an open item. The committee did meet. The committee made a recommendation. They took a vote, and this was the vote that they took to move forward with these names. In this COVID world, we have not had any movement in 2020. To the extent that we do something to honor those 2019 folks, if this is approved tonight, keep in mind that Walk of Fame as a part of that ocean project, that beach project the CRA is working on. The Walk of Fame always has to change locations at some point. My guess is that when we change its location, that these names would be incorporated into the new location. There's still streetscape work to do on A1A, and that will displace the Walk of Fame as it exists today. And there's some discussion of it coming back up in the new park, the Los Olas Oceanside Park, that we would add these names at that time.
Okay, good. I think that's a great idea because some of the sidewalk material from some of the last pieces that we put in to recognize people, it's already crumbling. So I don't know if maybe we should already remove some of those people's names because what good is seeing there is a piece there that was just installed a year ago for Buddy Lockery and it's just crumbling already. So I don't know if that does anybody any good. So maybe we can take a look at what's out there, how badly it is damaged and, not holding up. And maybe we remove it sooner than later and, do a really nice job to recognize those folks when we decide what that location might be.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I've got to tell you, I was fairly incensed when I saw the damage that was done as it relates to the 5G project that was done out at the beach with those small cell towers. Total disrespect for those Walk of Fame markers, and many of them were replaced, and others have since deteriorated. So we will take a look, and I share that frustration.
No, thank you, and that's a whole nother story you brought up because the way those towers get put in, again, like all the other utilities, no courtesy, no consideration for the residents or the city. They don't tell anybody what's going on. All of a sudden, someone just sees something going in. They don't have any responsibility to discuss it or bring it forward to somebody. It's just a terrible way of doing business and so disrespectful to a neighborhood or a community or a city. But yes, so I share those frustrations, but thank you, Chris.
Chris, I know you and I have talked about this. I mean, there's nothing we can do to force them to communicate better with us, but can we hold them liable financially for the damage? That's absurd.
We absolutely can, and we absolutely did.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you're correct that they do not have to come to us for permitting. That's all right of way of the state. And sometimes we learn about it after it comes in. But in this particular case, and there's no sense in calling out specific vendors at this point because they did make right by the
Okay.
project. But they did fly a team in to Fort Lauderdale to address the fact that they created that damage, and they were quick to replace it at their expense.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to jump
No,
on that.
thank you. I appreciate that. I'm good. I'm able to move that, Mayor, if you want to move that.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment.
Yes.
Maybe instead of the walk of fame, maybe there's some kind of wall of fame somewhere. So it's a little bit more durable and maybe our artistic community can get together with some ideas and create something at that new park. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, did someone second that?
Not yet.
May I hear a second?
Second.
Been seconded. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the motion is approved. We move on to CR2, which is a resolution amending the lease agreement. Vice Mayor. You're on mute. You're on mute. We missed
Sorry
all,
about that. Yes.
missed all those words.
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you. I do know that FDOT has removed some of the language with regards to, curb to the retail establishment, and code is trying to move some of that items back. But I hear a lot of problems with people that have, in terms of pedestrian pathways, just the fact that it's so tight. Chris, do you think that any of that is going to improve when we finish a lot of the streetscape project that we are working on? Will it be more accessible for pedestrians to make their way through with these cafes, sidewalk cafes?
So really a two-part answer there. If we had compliance in most circumstances with the existing requirement as to how far that they can come into the sidewalk itself, there would be room for pedestrians to go in both directions. Sometimes those sidewalk cafes sneak their way to the east and on the line that they're supposed to extend out from the restaurant too. And so that becomes a code issue. The other issue we have out there with pedestrians and walkers are the sandwich boards that take up any other available space that the sidewalk dining does not. So I do not have any specific examples of how it will get better, Vice Mayor. But I also don't have any specific examples of how the streetscape project is intended for it to be worse. The streetscape project does add some pedestrian lighting, and that's never bad when it comes to moving pedestrians on sidewalks in a fairly dark environment most of the year. But I don't know that I can necessarily say there's a plus, but I can also say I don't think there's a negative. This is just a continuation of what we've had for the last 10 years.
Okay, and I know that, it's a tough balance. The restaurants, want to succeed, and those sandwich signs help, and, creeping out a little further east helps. But then again, it's just tough to navigate for people that want to walk. And it's a difficult balance. As long as we're in good communication and it's not an adversarial position that we take with the business owners, and we try to, work it out, I think that we can get there. But I just wanted to make sure that we weren't anticipating any further problems with this. But I hear what you're saying. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said I do not anticipate any further problems.
Okay, thank you. I can move the item, Mayor, CR2.
CR2's, the resolution has been introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation to extend the lease terms for the usage of right-of-way easements along A1A from Southeast 5th Street to Sunrise Boulevard for the purpose of sidewalk cafes, delegating authority to the city manager to execute instruments related to this transaction and providing for an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the resolution is approved. No one pulled CR4, but I'd like us to just take a moment and go to one of the items here. This is on the budget amendment. This is item A on page 2. There's a request to allocate $5 million from the Parks and Recreation Bond to the Lauder Trail. Now, I know this is coming up later in the agenda, but I think now is the time to talk about it because we're allocating money. And I'm very concerned about this expenditure. And the reason why is because I don't know what it's going for. We haven't really come up. I mean, originally, when we talked about Lauder Trail, we thought it was a feel-good idea of trying to stitch together some existing pathways and roadways to kind of create a 7-mile nature trail, bike trail, walking path that we don't have right now in Fort Lauderdale. And to be able to identify it, brand it, and make it part of the urban scene so that people would feel good about living in the central part of the city. Instead, this thing has morphed into some gargantuan project that's, according to estimates, could cost the city as much as $30 million, which is outrageously crazy. And I'm beginning to think that that the original purpose of this project has kind of gone sideways. It was never to cost millions of dollars. It was certainly not 30 million. And when we look to comparative projects in other cities, the costs are nowhere near what we are projecting here. And so I would like that we could certainly pass this particular CR4, but I'd like to pull A off because I think we really need to rethink where this, I don't even know where $5 million is going. There's been no identified path. Initially, they talked about some kind of pathway along the railroad track. So let me tell you, that's the last place I think this should go because it's dangerous along railroad tracks. There's nothing scenic about railroad tracks. And it certainly, I think it contradicts the very idea of having a trail that was intended to be something that people would want to bike or ride or rollerblade. Has anyone in this commission seen what the $5 million is going for? I certainly haven't.
Yeah. So,
But Mayor,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
thought that quite a while ago when they were sunsetting, I thought we did vote as a commission to allocate $5 million seed money to them. I thought we voted that already a while ago.
I don't think so. And $5 million as seed money, that seems crazy.
I just have a memory of us voting to allocate $5 million when that board was created. And I'm sure Commissioner Sorensen and Commissioner Moritas, but they've been working with a working group now, can talk to us more about that. But I have a recollection that we actually did vote. Maybe Jeff can help me here or someone can help me here. I thought we voted $5 million to this quite a while ago.
Someone want to?
I thought it was part of our park
It was part of the bond.
allocation.
It was identified as a park bond project in
Yes.
that resolution where we identified.
Don't disagree with
projects.
I fully understand that it was identified as a park bond project, but now we're looking to spend $5 million, and I don't know what we're spending it for.
okay.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Sorensen and I can both speak to it. You want to go first, Ben?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead, Commissioner Moritas.
So fill in where what
Yeah.
I'm missing. We have been working on this together with our committee, and you are right to say that it has morphed into something a little bit more because of the input from the community. For example, this trail will also be connected to Mockingbird Trail and Old Dillard Trail, which have both been in the works for years, but they do not have a funding source also. So we have been working as a group to identify funding sources, and that's when we also came to the UDPA a couple weeks ago and asked if that group, when we're building the Joint Government Center, could also contribute to this trail, which would connect our downtown. We're currently thinking about 7 miles would be the initial trail. The $5 million, and I think Ben Rogers can also fill in a little bit more. We need a feasibility study and a master plan before we can bring the final ideas to the city. We would not present to you a $30 million project to approve. We would, though, present to you a project with phases. So if we were to connect our whole city, we've talked about an overall transportation or a mobility master plan throughout the city. I hear numerous projects brought before the commission about bike lanes in different areas. So we have already identified current bike lanes that we are that are in the works, whether it's an MPO project or the city of Fort Lauderdale. So the master plan would help connect those existing bike lanes to this seed 7-mile Lauder Trail, so that we have an overall understanding of how do we create a multimodal city. Maybe the scooters can ride on it. Maybe people can walk. Maybe people can bike. So it's different. And yes, when you're referring to the pathway along the rail, FEC rail in particular, I did have that idea because I was trying to think of the quickest way to get to District 1 from downtown so we could be connected. I happen to live near that rail up near Pinecrest, and it's not too far from my house. And believe it or not, I have walked along that rail before, and I don't feel quite so bad. There is currently a rail pathway just south of Sunrise in the Mass District. I forget the name of that trail. Ben Rogers, that trail right there? The Flagler Greenway. So it currently exists, and it's quite lovely, and it is right next to the rail. It has security and a barrier, so people are safe. So when you think of the best ways to connect our city, maybe it might not be as beautiful along the beach, which we talked about years ago, but we don't have a lot of space along the beach, which we all know, which is why we don't want the scooters down there, bumping into our pedestrians. So I think this initial money is not designated yet. Maybe we will use some of it for the feasibility study. Next would be the master plan. We would like to connect, like I said, our city, our entire city. As much as I'm in favor of connecting, starting with the 7 miles downtown, I'm also always looking out for District 1 and how we can be connected. So I think the 5 million, I do believe it is a starting point, because I do believe, based on the input I've received from neighbors, there is a great desire to have more connectability throughout the city. And like I said, that's from Mockingbird and Old Dillard. So I do believe there are other funding opportunities available. We've looked at other municipalities and how they've pieced together appropriations, whether it's from the state or private money or the city or the county. We are talking about later designating it as a park. So when you designate this linear space as a park, we can use park bond money. So I think there are a lot of opportunities, and I believe we need to be a connected multimodal city. And I would feel comfortable if it was safe to ride a bike from my house downtown. And I believe the little pop-up businesses would flourish along that rail too. And I have seen it in other areas. So I do think it's still a good idea that I'll cling to.
Well, Commissioner, is it taking $5 million to come up with a feasibility study? That seems awfully.
No,
it's not, but we need to set the money aside. Technically, I'll let someone else speak to that, but Commissioner Sorensen, do you have any more ideas about what I'm missing in terms of, and we do probably need to do a better job of bringing these ideas back to the city, but we wanted to actually get this plan in place before we brought it to you. Commissioner Sorensen, what
Commissioner Wright, you've covered, I think, the key points. So, Mayor, this would be a line of credit from which we could draw to do basically 3 key things to start with. Feasibility study, in other words, kind of what do we have, what could be possible, what would work, a master plan as well for multimodal transportation across the city. And then the third piece is engaging with Path Foundation, which is a nonprofit entity that we looked at various organizations and nonprofits and for-profits to look at who really has done trails like this in cities similar, who has experience and who can help guide us for a very reasonable price to do that. So we would focus on those 3 things. Now, and Ben Rogers can speak better to this, but that the cost of those 3 items is not in any way going to be more than much of the 5 million, and Ben can give us specific numbers. But once we get those going to understand what we can do, what's possible, how to move forward, Then what we can commit to, Commissioner Moritas and I, is coming back as we look at possible expenditures to begin to grow this and build this, coming back to commission for approval for spending down any portion of that 5 million.
Okay, so we're not spending 5 million.
Correct.
Just setting it aside.
Yes, it's an allocation, Mayor.
Yeah, I can address that. So the real need right now is about 300,000, Mayor. The rest would, the thought process was that it was easier just to move it once than move it in pieces. But what the need is right now is about $300,000. The rest would be unallocated until that plan is done.
Okay, all right. Under those circumstances, then I find it easier to accept. Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you both for explaining that to me. I really appreciate it.
And just for the record, Chris, for clarification, the 300,000, is that for the Path Foundation to complete the feasibility study?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all we're spending right now, and that'll, like Commissioner Sorensen said, show us what is feasible, where could we have a trail that made sense.
Okay.
And then after that, we would, proceed with the master plan to really connect everything, and we'll come back to you before we spend any more money.
Okay, thank you.
Alan, was there enough discussion on that somebody should just move that item since it shared all that discussion?
No, I mean,
Can just fall back onto the consent motion? It was not officially pulled.
no, that's
Officially
fine.
pulled. I just had a question.
You just can put it back on consent.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, that was CR4, right? So next CP1. Vice Mayor, you pulled this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris, is there any more detail involved here at all in terms of breakdown by consultant or project, or are we just adding to the pool of consultants here? Do we have anything specific that we know that all of them might be dealing with?
You know, the intent of this is to competitively solicit for on-call people that as these needs come up over the years, we can just issue task orders and we get the work done much quicker. I don't believe there is, but let me turn to our procurement specialist, Chief Jody Hart, and maybe she can answer that question. We'll start there, and if we need to go to Public Works, we can.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are.
There we go. Happy New Year. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, the question is whether or not we have specific projects designed or allocated to specific firms.
Yes, and more detail. And I understand that basically we're just really opening this up to one more firm because one negotiations weren't successful. So that seems to be the major premise here, that we're just opening it up to Corradino. But yes, are there specific projects or ideas where we think that we're going to use all of these people, or any more specific details? Thank you.
So according to the procurement ordinance, what we do with these pools is we have a list of various qualified vendors that we can go to, and we work on a rotating basis. But because we don't know exactly when these projects are going to be put out there, and we don't know what the schedules are of each of these qualified vendors, we can't assign them until we're ready to actually start the projects.
Okay. Thank you. So then basically this is just to open it up to get one more into the pool?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Mayor, I'm good. I can move forward with this.
So the Vice Mayor moves the item. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's a big pool for 5.1.
It's a lot of traffic needs.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and CP1 is approved. CP2, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris, do we have any idea when we might see some initial designs, any kind of timeline moving forward with this project?
So within the next 45 to 75 days, they're close. We've seen some massing stuff at this point. What they've really worked on is the situation, how the site is situated, how the building is situated on the site, to allow for the current building to continue to function while we build the new buildings so that we can maximize the ability of not having to move the police department somewhere during construction. So what you would see at this point is really just a floor plate and some massing ideas, but we'll continue to build on that, and then we'll start to show some renderings.
Great. No, and I'm sure Moss will do a great job. That building, I don't know if they're aware of it, but maybe you can let them know. But, Bill Biggany was a great architect, and what he did design there at once was quite interesting. It's just been bastardized over the years, and you can't even recognize what was once designed there as kind of a cool building for that police headquarters. But it would be great if somehow we could pay homage to that kind of international design and what Bill Biggany did on that site. It technically is in Sailboat Bend, so that is a historic district. But I just hope that we do something cool and it just doesn't look like, a cookie cutter, building that's going to serve a department. And that's all. That's just some of my thoughts. But thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Good idea. Good ideas.
Stephanie Toothaker has signed up to speak on this. I assume it's just to respond to any questions. Ms. Toothaker, are you on the line?
I can move the item, Mayor, if she's not.
Sorry. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Stephanie Toothaker. Yes, I was just available for questions, and thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you. So the Vice Mayor has moved the item. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the item is approved. Move on to CP4. Commissioner Moritas, you had pulled that.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions. One is just kind of maybe about the technology a little bit more. The technology we're choosing to go with. I know we recently had residents update all of their information to get the new parking rate that we voted on for residents. Will all of our information transfer over easily? I don't know if there's anyone here that could help answer that question.
Let me bring Ben Rogers to the podium.
Yeah, some constituents were concerned about that because it was quite difficult to upload their information the first time a few months ago.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. To answer your question, Commissioner Moritas, the resident rate is all programmed in the Pay by Phone app and not this equipment. So this equipment is like the pay stations that you see in the sidewalk. You go up and put your time in and pay with bills or credit card. So the resident rate is completely separate from this hardware.
So will Pay by Phone still work with this device?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're in negotiations with Pay by Phone now to bring them forward and extend their contract as well.
Okay, so Pay by Phone is what residents used when they uploaded their information the first time to get that rate. All that will stay the same, that Pay by Phone,
Correct.
their license plate and everything,
That-
and just transfer over to this new physical device.
Correct.
Okay, and so we probably don't need a major education campaign, but maybe we do, just to let people know new systems will be coming and you're still good.
Yeah, so on the side of the multi-space meters, there's about 225 of them across the city, and they all have a life cycle. So I think we're on a 7 or an 8 year life cycle. And so what we'll do is as the old ones expire, we'll replace these with the new ones. So you'll see them scattered out. We might centralize them out on the beach or in core areas since they're newer and more durable. But overall, there's not going to be a major user experience difference.
Okay, so people won't notice it. And Pay by Phone, is that the app we use with all of our parking meters throughout the city?
Yes, our contract right now is with the Pay by Phone.
Okay, so that'll transfer. Thank you, Ben. That was it just for that. And I did have one question for Jody.
Ben, don't leave the podium area. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jody. Jody, I just want you to answer. I did receive some communication about the different proposals. I just wanted to know, based on your.
Speak into your mic.
Sorry, is it not clear? Based on our procurement procedures, do you feel like all these proposals have met all of our procurement rules and nothing should be disqualified based on what we've received?
Absolutely. I had reviewed through the paperwork that we had received, and absolutely, there were all of the vendors that were scored were responsive to what was put forth.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So what is, how do you see the debate here? What is, I'm not a parking meters expert, and I know the commissioner's not. So tell us, what is the debate between these two vendors that seems to underlie their dispute, and why we should choose one over?
I think that is actually best answered by the vendor that brought forth.
We're going to hear their perspective, but you're the objective observer, and you're the one, you and your team made the decision. So help us through this process. Tell us, because I don't understand the mechanics of a parking meter. You do.
So all I can tell you is we put out a solicitation. We had vendors respond to the solicitation. They gave us written documentation. We did an extensive review with staff, not only on paper, but they also evaluated meters themselves. And what they were looking at was the meter, the software that would end up using and be compatible with this payment program that we have, as well as back-end reporting, so that we would be able to account for what's going on and know how different meters were doing. And in all of the evaluations that went through, the evaluation committee ranked each of the different vendors that came into place. And one of the vendors was not happy with the outcome and questioned the validity of whether or not the first responder, or the highest ranked, should have even been awarded. But as I'm sure that we will get into, they didn't follow the appropriate protest procedures.
But is there any merit to the claim that the winner of the award actually hid costs that may materialize during the period of the contract period, that may end up costing the city more than what was initially represented?
So what I did when I received that letter, I was aware of the fact that it was past the protest point, but I still felt that I had a duty to the city to look at, see whether or not there was any misgoings on or anything inappropriate. And my feeling was that if there was anything appropriate, I would come to commission and reject all bids, or ask to reject all bids and go back out. But after going through and evaluating the information that was given to me by the vendor, I did not feel that it warranted or substantiated me coming to the commission to ask for that.
It might be worth having Ben, since you said don't go far. Ben, can you probably can speak more to the technology aspect of this equipment than either I or Jody can. We can speak to the procurement process, but if the mayor has questions about the technology aspects of it, can you address that just quickly?
Yeah, to Jody's point, Mayor, as part of this proposal response, each vendor had to actually bring physical equipment here, and they set it up at our building, at the 290 building. And we had staff go through it hands-on and service the machine and get, hands-on, understand what it would take to service the machine out in the field, how to swap out batteries or card readers, how to program the machine, all of those kind of technical back-end needs. Both machines, in my opinion, have very similar traits. They have, the screen, the programming, all of those type of things. And when you look at the life of the machine and you take into consideration the warranty years, not just the purchase price, but the life of the machine, I believe that the evaluation committee recognized the IPS group and recommended them based on the cost and the performance of the equipment over the life of the machine.
Are they functionally equivalent?
I would say they're pretty apples to apples. Some of them have, this bell, and another one might have that whistle, but at the end of the day, they both serve they can fulfill the need of the parking department.
Okay. Any more questions?
No.
Vice Mayor, you had pulled that also. Any questions?
I did pull that, Mayor. Thank you. As I don't consider myself a parking meter technician or technology expert, so this was kind of interesting for me. I read all of the information that was supplied by the companies. These are excellent companies. They all do work in in a numerous number of municipalities, all good references. But I do get confused when I'm reading contradictory information. I'm being told on one hand that some of the costs are being hidden, like you had mentioned. I'm being told that they're not including all of the transaction fees that should be asked about. If the calculations included the single meters per fee transactions, some companies have per fee transactions, others don't. But this is all Greek to me. I'm sure it's not Greek to you, Mayor, but it's Greek to me. So it's a little difficult. I don't know. Let me ask the question: is this something that we have to decide tonight? Because I would really like to almost ask a lot of questions and see presentations. Not that I don't trust our staff that does an amazing job, but is there an urgency to this agenda item, or could it be deferred so that I could even sort of dig in a little bit deeper and feel a little bit more confident about, there was a lot to read, and I'm trying to give all of the companies a fair shake here, but is there an urgency, Chris? Do we have to do this right away?
Let me just chime in really quick before we get into a timing issue, but I just want to note and just caution the commission that we do not have a valid protest at this point. It's untimely. And what was presented is really not something for your, now you can certainly get more information on it, but we do have a process that we follow for procurement, and we need to be careful not to step outside that process. And again, note that we do not have a valid protest. And if we're doing this in an exercise to evaluate the contents of the letter that were received by the opposing company, then I would caution against it, because we're going outside our process and we're going to be inviting more trouble than it's worth.
No, and I respect that. I'm also troubled that there was nothing filed in a timely fashion that follows the process. That does create an issue for me. No, I appreciate that. I was just trying to figure out, is there an urgency that we have to do this right now?
And from a timing perspective, you've got equipment that you've got to replace. So, that generates a sense of urgency at some point. But what is our sense of urgency with this?
Yeah, I mean, this procurement was delayed over time because of COVID. It was actually suspended at one point because we couldn't get together. So I don't think there's any immediate need, but I think it's sometime in the near future, Chris.
Vice Mayor, so I understand what you're saying, but I think based on what the city attorney is telling us is, all right, let's say we deferred it tonight. What would we be doing during that time period? We can't accept the protest because it was not timely filed. So what would we be doing during that deferment period?
No, I understand. And that was going to be my next question to Alan, because I don't want to step outside of where we should be stepping on this. And I understand all that. I guess for me, it would just probably be a matter of feeling more educated. But at the end of the day, I have to trust staff to be that educated person.
I feel comfortable accepting the staff's recommendation and moving the item forward.
Okay. Ben, do you have anything else to add? Okay. All right. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. This is to approve the item, not to defer. So,
Mr. Mayor, before you call that vote, do we have any public comment on this topic?
we have, yes, we do. Thank you for reminding me. I got caught up in the debate. We have Ron Klein, who has signed up to speak. Mr. Klein, do you have anything further you'd like to add to this? Please come up, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm Ron Klein. I'm from Holland Knight, represent IPS. Again, I think we feel very strongly that all parties went through the process. This has been a 2-year process of time between an original RFP that was withdrawn and then this one that went through. This was the company that I represent is the largest company in the United States. It manufactures its products here in the United States. The competitors do not, as one factor, but it really does have a very large and profound presence and does a good job. But again, I think the procurement process is the point. I mean, you have a very thorough staff analysis here. It's been vetted a number of times, been re-vetted. Somebody came in, and we understand, hey, everyone goes through a competitive process of vendor, but everyone should follow the rules. What's fair is fair. The vending process and procurement process, as required by law in Fort Lauderdale, is so you have integrity with public vendors that want to come forward and participate and do business with the city. If you start going outside that process, just because someone's unhappy and alleging a number of things that really are untrue, unfortunately, and just designed to create confusion at this point. Again, I think the procurement department was very straightforward in the way they analyzed it. And we have, there's someone who also presented, Chad Randall is available if you need any more information from the company. He's available virtually. But I want to thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, can I ask the congressman a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Congressman, I can't see you, but hi, this is Steve Glassman. How are you?
I'm fine, Commissioner. I hope you're doing okay too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Congressman, can we ensure that the calculations in the single space meters contemplate the numbers of transactions and there won't be an additional fee per transaction?
Commissioner, what I can say, because I can't tell you that personally, but what I can say is the procurement department has spent a considerable amount of time with the company to make sure that all the information presented is 100% accurate. But I think you have to probably more fairly ask your procurement department to make sure they're comfortable with that. But I think the answer is yes.
Okay, good. Again, I just want to make sure that we're getting the best product for the best price that the city can do. And that's my goal at the end of the day.
This is all about the taxpayers, we agree, and revenues for the city.
Okay, good. Because that seemed to be such a big concern in what I was reading, that was not calculated that way. But I'm glad to hear you telling me that we should be okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Mayor, I just have a quick.
Chad Randall had signed up to speak. Does he want to also speak?
I think is available for information if there are any questions as someone who can technically had prepared the RFP.
Does anybody want to inquire of Mr. Randall?
Mayor, I just had a quick IT question.
Please go ahead.
So Andrew Parker, right now I'm trying to see Ron Klein or whoever's at the podium right now, and I can't see them. And it sounds like Vice Mayor can't either. How do we?
Nobody's at the podium.
Okay. Well, where was Ron Klein speaking from?
Oh, he walked away from the podium. Can you not see the podium?
Correct. I cannot. I've never been able to see the podium.
Oh.
That could be user.
Okay, we're going to check into that in a moment.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
I think it's because I asked them to just fixate the camera on me only, and no one else is allowed to share the camera.
It's
sorry.
One of the beautiful vistas of our city.
While they're doing that, Mr. Seth Platt has asked to speak. Seth, you're on the line.
I see him there, Mayor.
Seth, can you unmute yourself?
Go ahead, Seth.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Great. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Seth Platt from LSN Partners, representing the first ranked proposer for the dual space meters that the city unfortunately canceled after I sent a couple letters in on this. I've forwarded some documents for your review that I would like placed into the record so the entire parking meter industry can see the business tactics IPS deployed in Fort Lauderdale to game this procurement process and extract exorbitant fees from the city's customers. Should the city approve this contract, I doubt I'll be trusting them with my credit card information to pay for parking. The city received a letter from Flowbird's counsel detailing many of the issues uncovered in reviewing this procurement. Unfortunately, the pricing and public records were provided with less time than allotted for due process of a protest period, and we did not get an objection in. But we're not here to play a game of gotcha or file legal briefs, rather to elucidate the public and this deliberative body with the power to ensure the city of Fort Lauderdale enacts sound policy in its purchases for goods and services. I do not fault the city for not recognizing some of the tactics we had to elucidate for their own review so they could properly recalculate the proposals. But cost was not the only way they skewed the process. IPS played a game of bait and switch with their product offering and hid pricing by offering required features only as optional costs at additional costs, with the evaluation committee unaware of that when they shortlisted their value proposition. On single space meters, they charge a per fee transaction, which continually compounds the monthly cost that is activated upon, and it is activated upon multiple uses and could not have been comparatively analyzed with vendors such as Flowbird, who do not charge such a frivolous fee by staff. IPS could handle thousands of financial transactions with secure data, yet to this point, they have not provided publicly available corroboration that they meet the industry standards for point-to-point encryption of financial information, which places the city and all of its customers at financial security risk. Upon public records requests, we were provided redacted information which could not corroborate their claims. And the company does not appear in the industry database online of secure providers. This procurement process was not fair. The true costs are unknown. The selected vendor has demonstrated untrustworthy business practices, and there is no corroboration publicly of IPS's P2PE compliance. I'm not asking that you award this bid to me. I'm asking that you look at the calculations that were made to assess the validity of their value proposition. Let's tighten up and why don't we just rebid this procurement? You can cancel it. Don't listen to your attorney who says you have no power. You have all the power in the world. Let's tighten and confirm all requirements to avoid these loopholes and generate a true cost comparison so you're not blindsided by future bills during busy season. And let's protect the public trust to our parking system, which relies on honesty and enforcement and deterrence. If you're not going to demonstrate deterrence to bad companies that come in and play games with the procurement process, then what kind of a message are you sending to people who should be paying for parking on your streets?
All right. Thank you, Seth. The 3 minutes is up. Ben, do you want to respond to those statements if you could?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the first thing I'll respond to is the PCI and the security. We worked with our information technology team. They reviewed it. The IPS group got a green score or a good for their PCI requirements. And there were some concerns with the Flowbird PCI as they store some of their information, I think overseas or outside of the US. So from the security side, that was reviewed in depth by the information technology team. And I'm comfortable with their findings. As for the cost, once again, the procurement department went through and looked at all this stuff line item by line item. They took optional costs and added them in. And I really think that when you look at the cost of the life of the machine and you add in the warranty periods and those type of aspects is one of the main contributors of why the IPS group was less costly than Flowbird.
Is there a built-in user fee every time there's a transaction that adds to the cost?
There are some user fees. I'd have to pull some information to get you that granular detail, but yes, there are fees and transaction fees built in on, I think, all of the proposals.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions? Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further questions? Anyone else from the community that wants to participate in this discussion? Anyone raise their hand? No? Okay. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. This is a tough one for me. Those are some strong statements that we heard. and yet I'm not really finding myself having enough time to do more research and understand it better. I don't really know what that sense of urgency is. And yes, I also do believe that commissions throw out bids and ask staff to start all over again. But I don't have a comfort level. I'm sorry about that. It's just too much information that's come my way so recently, and too many strong statements that create a lot of questions in my mind. And again, I want us to get the best product at the best cost for the city. I'm going to have to, at this moment, vote no.
Okay.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
I'm not seeing sufficient fault in the process or with our staff's analysis, so I vote yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the motion is approved. Thank you, everybody. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda? Oh, wait a minute.
Let's make
The
one-
city manager wants to talk about CR.
I'd like to talk about CR1 really quickly if I can, just because I spent some significant time this morning
Thank you,
with
Congressman.
the chamber as it relates to a recommendation that they had, that as we addressed our legislative priorities this year, that we specifically called out that we would support anything that enhanced Visit Florida. And I committed to them that I would bring that to the commission's attention tonight. I do believe that we address supporting tourism in the legislative priorities as they are written. But if you all as a commission would like to specifically call out Visit Florida, that was the ask of the chamber this morning. We could add and amend the legislative priorities, and you could adopt them as amended or adopt them as.
So what exactly do you want to amend it?
I would, if you choose to add that in the economic stability and business development, I would, add the words support legislation promoting tourism, support Visit Florida, and transfer the spending. So I would just add support Visit Florida in that line item on page 2.
I think we should, Mayor.
Well,
Support Visit Florida, not enhance Visit Florida, but just support it as it was
I
currently
think
funded last year.
support is broad enough that we can make it be many
Right.
things.
Isn't that one of the groups usually on the chopping block? Visit Florida and,
They line up right with Sadowski, it seems.
yeah, okay. So support
Okay,
it as-
so the resolution is being asked to be adopted as amended. Would someone like to introduce that resolution as amended?
Introduced.
Okay, so so with that resolution being introduced as amended, as well as all the other consent agenda items that have not yet been voted on, do I hear a motion to approve the balance of these items?
Moved.
Been moved, and do I hear?
Second.
Moved and second.
Okay, for the CR1 as amended, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving the City of Fort Lauderdale's 2021 state legislative priorities and providing an effective date. And for the rest of the, should I do those separate, Alan, or I can do them together? Vote. Okay. Vice Mayor and the remaining consent agenda, Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Commissioner McKenzie? All right, just move on.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor.
And
Trent-
yes for McKenzie.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
you have to unmute yourself.
I know.
And my vote is yes. So that includes all the rest of the consent agenda items, including CR1 as amended. Okay, we have a neighborhood presentation by Hi Montero. Is Mr. Montero here? Is he on the line?
I'm checking now, Mayor. I do not see as a panelist. Let me check attendees. Do not see as attendees. We have one call-in attendee, a 321 number. If that is the presenter, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I do not see that name listed. Looking to our IT staff. Anybody that's called in for neighborhood?
Mr. Montero, if he should come in sometime during the meeting, we'll just take him up at that time.
Okay.
All right.
I don't see the name now.
All right. On to resolutions and appointment of board and committee members. Mr. Clerk, would you like to read the names?
Mayor, Commissioners, for the next commission meeting, consensus appointment for the Code Enforcement Board. There will be a vacancy coming up, and we have a current member that's an alternate who would like to be moved up to fill that board for the normal, the regular.
So you want to give us some names?
And that is Terry Nolan.
Harry Nolan?
Terry Nolan.
Okay, and
that's a consensus appointment for code enforcement.
For code enforcement, okay.
And that's the only name we have for the next meeting. For tonight's meeting, Cemetery System Board of Trustees, Benjamin Dowers, nominated by Commissioner Sorensen. Central City Redevelopment Advisory Board, Charlene Gunn, nominated by Vice Mayor Glassman. Luis Castillo Oliveira, nominated by Vice Mayor Glassman, and Robert Ian, nominated by Vice Mayor Glassman. Community Appearance Board, Sean Roberts, nominated by Commissioner Sorensen. Nuisance Abatement Board, Glenn Lindsay, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. And that rounds it out for tonight.
Okay, would someone like to introduce the resolution as amended?
Introduced.
Please call the roll.
A resolution in City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, appointing or nominating, if applicable, board and committee members as set forth in the exhibit attached here to and made a part hereof. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKee,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
and Trentalis.
Yes, and on to R2, resolution dissolving the complete Count Advisory Committee 2020 decennial census. Do I hear someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced, Mayor, I did have a statement I wanted to make, though.
Do you?
I do,
Please go ahead.
but thank you, Mayor. I really want to thank David Brown and the committee, the advisory committee, for all of its work. But I also want to know if there was ever any kind of analysis of with all of that work and all of us plugging as we did from the commission, and what do we think? Did we learn anything? Did we find out what we could do better in 10 years in terms of getting that participation rate up over that 57% for the city? When you look at the other participation rates from some of the other cities in the county, astronomical, and even around the country, did we learn anything going forward?
First of all, do we know what the final participation rate was?
I'm guessing either David or maybe Hal would know. Hal is.
David doesn't know.
David doesn't know, so let's roll the dice on Hal. Hal Barnes.
And the reason that David doesn't know, oh, please, Hal.
Good evening, Mayor Commissioners. My understanding is that they haven't finalized the numbers yet. David, you may be able to clarify that, but it takes a little longer. I know that our reporting was, David, what, 57.3 at last count. And I don't think the final numbers have come out yet. I think some of the door-to-door canvassing that the Census Committee does needs to be also built into these numbers.
Correct. What we have is, as you said, Hal, 57 plus, which does not include door-to-door canvassing that was done at the end, and that was cut short dramatically by a court decision and the Commerce Department's decision to cut the door-to-door canvassing by at least 2.5 weeks. And there was a great deal of controversy between that. In the last census, we got up to 67%. But in answer to the Vice Mayor, yes, we have a lot of suggestions and recommendations to make. I would ask you to incorporate into your record of this proceeding. We have minutes from our October 27th final meeting of our board, which contained at least 15 recommendations and identifications of some of the problems that we had. And if I can go into a few of them, and I'll go in all 15 if you have the time, but clearly one of the problems that we had was that we were organized, we were structured as a body that had to exist under the sunshine rules. And as such, the committee members were not able to talk to each other between meetings, even though we weren't making any decisions about spending money or contracting for people. And therefore, we were not able to interact as a committee. We challenged that at one point. We were told that that's the way it had to be. At one of our initial meetings, we also requested a budget of $43,750, which was calculated at 25 cents a head for everybody that we knew, the 150,000 or so residents. As it turned out, we were only provided with $15,000. And then as it became obvious that that was insufficient, we had another $15,000. And when you total it all up, we ended up getting from the city manager, 41,000. And because we weren't given that money, or that money wasn't allocated to the pot at the beginning, we weren't able to make any of the longer term decisions, whether those decisions had to do with electronic communications or television communications, or any of the other programs that we wanted to put into place. So those are just two of the difficulties we had. And we strongly suggest that 10 years from now, when we do this again, that several things happen. Number one, this needs to start at least 18 months, if not 2 years sooner than it did. Secondly, the budget has to be identified, and a meaningful budget has to be identified at the beginning. There is so much money that we left on the table because we weren't able to, as a committee, communicate with each other. We had asked several times to have our meetings twice a month instead of once a month. We were told that that wasn't possible because of sunshine and record keeping and notification. So that may give you an idea of how, in many cases, our hands were tied. And none of us are making any excuses for the low turnout. We're just trying to give you some ideas about how to improve this process. Everyone on the committee worked as hard as they could, participated as much as they could, but in the absence of being able to nose around between meetings to identify who had the best entree to a particular business or a homeowners association, we literally had to wait until the next meeting because you had only allocated 2 people to this project. In fact, one, Junie Robinson, who was spectacular during the whole process, and Monique Damiano, who was also spectacular. But the 2 of them were not enough. We didn't have a buy-in from all of the city departments quickly, which we could have had. And that'll just give you some idea. I mean, these are obviously getting down into the weeds a little bit.
Well, David, let's not do that because
I know I don't want to. That's why I'm stopping now.
This is over, and we have 10 years to figure out what we should do. I will say this, that I know in many cases your hands were tied at many different levels. Certainly, cutting short the time frame in which to continue the count made no sense whatsoever, but the overarching impediment to your doing the type of job that you wanted to do was, you were the COVID-19 certainly didn't help things. In fact,
Right.
it really destroyed the impetus that we had going into this effort. And maybe, I don't know, maybe under the new administration, they might extend it. I don't know, but I don't think Fort Lauderdale is going to get a fair shake in this process. I think we're going to suffer from an undercount, and it's disappointing because it makes no sense to try to deny people to be counted. So anyway, we appreciate. I echo the vice mayor's sentiments. We truly appreciate your efforts and everybody on the committee trying to do the right thing. And it's just unfortunate that so many different hurdles were thrown in your way to try to accomplish the goal that you attempted to do from the start. So
I would make one other point if I can.
okay.
It's very interesting that when all of this data comes to us by census tract, and while you might think that some of the the lower socioeconomic census tracts might have the lowest count, that's not actually the way it happened. Our worst census tracts, at least based on the data that we have so far, was Galt Ocean Mile, where an awful lot of people are snowbirds and left at approximately the time that the count was expected to start, April 1st, and didn't come back.
Right. Well, that and many other things.
I agree.
So
we thank you. We all thank you for the opportunity to serve the community. I'm sure every one of us would be willing to do this again.
call us. We'll call you in 10 years.
Thank you. Mayor, just one more comment, Mayor. Maybe, Chris, we can check out some of the 10 or 11 so cities that seem to got between 70 and 85% participation rate. Maybe there's some best practices out there that we can just learn from. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Quick question and this is for Alan. Alan, in the future, could we make this a like a working group, like kind of fashioned after Las Olas working group?
I mean, we could look at that, but that would be difficult because even in David's presentation, he said decisions. The board does make recommendations to the city commission for expenditures and for certain things that need to be done. It would be difficult to do that as a working group because it is essentially an advisory board. So it'd be very difficult to take that out of sunshine. We can certainly look at it and see if there's a way to frame it and limit their ability to do certain things and maybe create different channels. But I mean, we can certainly look at it. But
okay, yeah, I think it's worth doing to improve the communication and fluid response. Okay.
Yes. That's actually one of our recommendations, that we look at the way other cities were more successful.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Thank you, David, for your work.
So did someone introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
It's been introduced. Okay, let's please call the roll.
A resolution in the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, dissolving the Complete Count Advisory Committee for the 2020 Decennial Census and providing an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Commissioner McKenzie, are you there? Please continue.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes, and just a quick IT note, Andrew Parker saying they've identified the problem. The podium view is displayed on Comcast and AT&T, but not Zoom. So the crack IT team is going to correct it for next meeting. Thank you.
Did you vote yes?
and that was a yes.
Is that a yes, Commissioner?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm a yes too.
And that was Commissioner McKenzie.
That was Commissioner McKenzie, yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. And we move on to PH1. This is not really a public hearing. This is simply We need to adopt a resolution to establish a public hearing date to consider an award and sale of city-owned property located at 4270 Southwest 11th Street in Plantation. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Date?
Yes.
Tuesday, February 2nd at 6 p.m. Okay. All right, please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, setting a public hearing on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. pursuant to the city charter, section 8.02, to consider an award and sale of city-owned property located at 4270 Southwest 11th Street, Plantation, Florida, 33317, to the city of Plantation for public purposes and delegating authority to the city manager to execute any and all instruments related to this transaction and providing for an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and PH1 is approved. PH2, this is a public hearing and adoption of resolution approving the Parks, Recreation, and Beaches Advisory Board's recommendation for approval of the Lauderdale Linear Trail project as provided in the Parks and Recreation Bond Resolution. No one has signed up to speak, but I still think we need a motion to close public hearing.
Sure.
So moved.
Been moved and moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and public hearing is now closed. Do I hear someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Introduce, please call the roll.
A resolution, of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving the Parks, Recreation, and Beaches Advisory Board's recommendation for approval pursuant to the Parks and Recreation General Obligation Bond Resolution numbers 18-261 and 20-08 of the Lauderdale Trail Linear Trail Project with proceeds from Parks and Recreation Series 2028 General Obligation Bonds. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
No.
Yes, and PH2 is now approved. PH3, this is a public hearing, a quasi judicial resolution approving the rescission of a historic landmark designation of the property commonly known as the Phil Resnick House, located at 742 Northeast 17th Avenue. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. Commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any disclosures?
No.
Vice Mayor? You're muted.
No.
No.
Commissioner McKenzie, no. Commissioner Sorensen?
No.
Okay. I have no disclosures at all. But Chris Bloom has signed up to speak. I believe Chris is lives next door. Chris, is there anything that you want to add? You just want to be here to respond to any questions?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm actually the homeowner of the Resnick property currently, and as well, we reside and live in the property next door. And I'm here just to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Bloom?
Actually, Mayor, I have questions for Tricia Logan on this issue.
Okay, but let's ask, we'll get to that in a moment. So,
okay,
Chris, I guess no one has any questions, so just please stand by.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Is Tricia here?
She is.
Okay. Hi, Trish. In reading through the information, if I only read the reasons why staff and HPB is recommending the rescission, I would be okay. But when I read further, and I actually read when this property was designated in 2006, all of the reasons that are given currently for the rescission, and I'll go through that really quickly. It says it no longer meets the criterion due to multiple alterations to the original structure. But all of those alterations to the original structure were done way before the property was designated in 2006. So that's just perplexing to me. And then when I go and I look at the original application and I read some of the comments at that time from staff, and I guess most of those comments were done from Marilyn Rathburn, she actually says that, I'm gonna just find that language here. Or maybe I'm not gonna just spend all that time, but I wanted to ask you your opinion on that because it was really designated based on its distinguishing characteristic as an architectural style valuable for the study of a period, method of construction, or use of indigenous materials. And at that time, there was a board member who did ask, what about all these changes? And Marilyn said that the changes were not that significant and the house still had its historic character, and that it was because it represented the period of construction and therefore was worthy of designation based on criterion F. So again, and
Really,
to go further,
Vice Mayor,
yeah.
does it really matter? I mean, everybody involved in this wants to change in designation. So what are we going to accomplish by asking all these questions?
I just want it to make sense, Mayor. All of the reasons that are given for the rescission right now were all reasons of items that happened and issues that happened way before the HPB designated in 2006. So I just want, if Tricia can explain to me why was that not an issue in 2006?
She wasn't
And
here?
now, no, but she knows what I'm talking about. Can I hear from Trish, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thanks.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tricia Logan, Department of Sustainable Development. It's hard to ascertain what actually occurred in 2006 since I wasn't here. However, I'm not sure if they had access to the original drawings that are included in the Historic Preservation Board staff report, which do substantiate the number of changes that did occur to the property and really paint the picture of what the original intent of the design was when it was first constructed versus what was changed over time prior to the designation. So when you do the comparison, it's hard to justify that it meets the criterion in which it was designated and merits designation as an individual landmark.
So if it was up to you, knowing what you know now, even about the condition of this house in 2006, would you have recommended against designation in 2006?
I would say if the application came to me today under that same criterion with the house in its current condition, I would not recommend that the Historic Preservation Board or City Commission approve designation for that property.
Right, and I won't take up everyone's time reading that paragraph on the CAM, page 2 of 2, but the second paragraph under designation of rescission process, that entire paragraph all happened way before 2006 is all I'm saying. All of the reasons that you're giving to rescind the designation, it all happened way before this property was designated. If all of these items happened subsequent to 2006, then yes, I understand. I just don't understand. I'm still going to vote for the rescission, but even though that the rationale makes no sense and it didn't make sense in 2006, and all of the items now happened way before the property was designated. Do you understand where I'm coming from? I know the mayor doesn't, but do you?
No, I fully understand where you're coming from. And in fact, I was on the commission in 2006, which designated this. And the reason why it was designated is because the owner wanted it designated. And so when someone wants to save a building and have it designated historic, the commission tends to follow suit because the commission then, as the commission now, always tries to preserve structures that have some sort of connection to the past. So if this was not done in an adversarial capacity, and today we're finding the same thing. There's no one against this. And you're
Right, but
raising,
I know, and I understand. I don't mean it that it needs to be an adversarial situation, but you still have to, whether an owner wants to designate a property or not, you still have to meet at least one of the criteria listed in the ordinance. You have to meet it. And obviously, your commission said, yes, you meet it. And believe it or not, the criteria that they met in 2006 is still met today, is what I'm saying. But I understand everyone says, go ahead with the rescission. I'm fine. But I just want you to know that it absolutely makes no sense when you really look at what you're talking about, because you have to say that it doesn't meet what it meant then. And it does meet what it meant then, is all I'm saying. So, but I'm okay with it. I just wanted to express that it's a very interesting way of going about it. That's all. I'm okay. Thanks, Mayor, for indulging me in the discussion.
anything for you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
So any other questions regarding this matter?
I will move to approve.
Well, do you want to first move to close public hearing?
Yes, because I know you don't want to hear me talk anymore. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
I think we lost Commissioner McKenzie, Vice Mayor.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, the public hearing is now closed.
Yes.
Yeah, and Commissioner McKenzie votes yes on the closing of public hearing. Now, the Vice Mayor, you'd like to introduce the resolution?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor.
And that's approving.
Yes, approving the rescission.
A resolution in the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a rescission of the historic landmark designation of the Phil Resnick House located at 742 Northeast 17th Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in accordance with Section 47-24.11 of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations, providing for conflicts and providing for an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the item is approved. OFR 1, this is a first reading of an ordinance amending the pay compensation table, Schedule 6, providing for 1.5% general wage increase effective October 4th, 2020. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? No one has signed up to speak. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Introduced, please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending the pay plan of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida by amending the non-bargaining unit compensation table and Schedule 6, thereby providing a 1.5% general wage increase to non-bargaining unit employees and Schedule 6 special employees, and providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the OFR 1 is approved on first reading. OFR 2, first reading of ordinance creating Article 11, Landlord Registration Program of Chapter 9, Buildings and Construction of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale. I have one person who has signed up to speak. That is Kelly Millette. Kelly, are you on the line? Kelly Millette, are you on the line? She is. Kelly, unmute yourself. There you are. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is Kelly Millette. I work as the Government Affairs Director for the Southeast Florida Apartment Association with the firm Lauderdale Book PA, located at 18851 Northeast 29th Avenue, Suite 1010, Aventura, Florida. I wanted to just talk tonight a little bit on behalf of the Apartment Association regarding the ordinance that's in front of you. First, to thank staff and the commissioners who I've been communicating with, just to thank you for the changes to the ordinance thus far. It's really positive. While we certainly support the city's effort to address problem landlords and locate them for important matters, what we would encourage you to do is look closely at the ordinance, because as written, it appears that a landlord who owned or who was managing a multi-unit complex, let's say, our average community in the city of Fort Lauderdale is 196 units. So as written, I believe the ordinance would require you to submit a registration for each residential unit on that property. And I just want to make sure that it would only be one registration for property like that. You certainly wouldn't want to be submitting duplicative information. Just creates sort of a cumbersome process. And would just wanted to make sure that, get some clarification on that. And again, thank you for your efforts in removing the fee, and let you know that our association is here to be of assistance to you as you deal with any, if we can be assistance to you as you deal with these kinds of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mayor, I can respond to that real quickly.
Please go ahead.
If that's okay. So I got that feedback earlier today. Certainly that the language that Kelly proposed made some sense to me. We'll work with the city attorney's office, and should you choose to approve this tonight, we will likely make that amendment between the two readings and bring it back with a second reading with a special, some language that if there's more than 10 units, that can just suffice as one application.
Okay. Also, you made a statement, Kelly, that I think needs additional comment. This ordinance is not just to track down landlords that are difficult to deal with. This ordinance will also help the city contact the actual landlord in case there is a code violation or some kind of city need to contact the landlord. When I used to be a landlord, I found that a lot of notices were kind of stuck on the property, and I had no idea that there was a violation accruing. And this puts the city on notice as to the correct name and address of the owner, so that due process is fulfilled, and it's not just that this process that was used before doesn't become a burden on the individual landowner. Anyway, so moving forward, we have this is OFR 2. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Chapter 9 Buildings and Construction of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida by creating Article 11 to be entitled Landlord Registration Program, requiring the registration of tenant-occupied residential dwelling units through a landlord registration program, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and providing for an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Keep going.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yeah, but yes.
And Commissioner McKenzie just said yes, and I say yes also. So that ordinance is now approved on first reading. OFR 3, first reading and ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances regarding building and construction fees. No one has signed up to speak. Anyone have any questions with regard to this item?
I move it.
Commissioner McKenzie has introduced the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Section 9-48, General Permit Fees, Chapter 9 Buildings and Construction, Article 2 Permits and Inspections, Division 2 Fees of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida by amending building permit fee schedule for certificates of occupancy and providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Keep going.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the
And I'm in yes too. I keep my unmute button sticking. That's why I keep doing that.
okay, Commissioner McKenzie says yes. So the ordinance, and I say yes. So the ordinance is approved on first reading. OFR 4. This is the first reading of an ordinance rescinding the commons at Cypress Creek Development of Regional Impact, formerly known as the Lightspeed Broward Center Development of Regional Impact. I have one person signed up, which I believe is simply for questions. This is Mr. Lockery. Anyone have any questions on the commission?
Nope.
Being none, would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
The ordinance has been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, rescinding ordinance number C-02-11 as amended by ordinance number C-07-100, which ordinance amended and restated the development of regional impact development order for the Commons at Cypress Creek Development of Regional Impact, located south of Cypress Creek Road, north of Northwest 60th Street, east of Andrews Avenue, and west of I-95, within the city of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the OFR 4 is approved on first reading. Moving on to ordinances on second reading. OSR 1, second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2 entitled Administration of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale relating to procurement. No one has signed up to speak. Does anyone have any questions? There being none, please call the roll.
Someone introduced.
Introduced.
I thought someone introduced it. I'm sorry. Introduced. Thank you.
An ordinance of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Division 2 of Article 5 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to wit, City of Fort Lauderdale Procurement Ordinance by creating definitions of disadvantaged business enterprise and small business, revising exclusions from the mandatory commission approval amount and the competitive solicitation and selection processes, revising the chief procurement officer's duties, responsibilities, authorizations, and accountabilities, creating a disadvantaged business enterprise preference program and limiting the combination of disadvantaged business enterprise preference and local business preference to 10% and providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and an effective date. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and OSR 1 is now approved on second reading. OSR 2 is a second reading of quasi judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from intense manufacturing industrial M3 of the Broward County zoning code and heavy commercial light industrial business district B3 to city general industrial I, district known as 2980 West State 84. Rezoning located at 2980 West State Road 84, the Robert L. Elmore, Pamela K. Hayes trustee. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. The commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any additional disclosures?
No.
Vice Mayor?
No.
Commissioner McKenzie?
No.
Commissioner Sorensen?
No.
Nor do I. So would someone like to introduce, wait, do we need to close public hearing on this? No? Okay. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
The ordinance has been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the city of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A, revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof, so as to rezone from M3 intense manufacturing and industrial district of the Broward County zoning code and B3 heavy commercial light industrial business district to I general industrial district, a portion of west 1/2 of section 20 township 50 south, range 42 east adjacent to interstate 595, bounded on west by parcel A, Lauderdale Propeller, according to the plat thereof recorded in plat book 183, page 162 of the public records of Broward County, Florida, and also the south fork of the New River, bounded on the east by the west line Port 95 Commerce Park Gordons and Plat thereof recorded in Plat Book 144, page 2 of the Public Record of Broward County, Florida, founded on the south by the south line of the north half of the north of southwest quarter of section 20, bounded to the north by the south right of way line, State Road 84, all said lands being in the city of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Brightus,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the ordinance is approved on second reading. Uh, Is there any further business of the commission?
Mayor, if you'd like, I'd like to do just a real quick summary of where COVID testing and vaccinations are, since we haven't talked about it
Please
during
go
this
ahead.
meeting. Just for anybody that might be still tuned in at home, we have two options now moving forward in our city, one for testing, one for vaccinations of persons age 65 and older. All testing in Fort Lauderdale. The testing site that you can visit is at Mills Pond Park, which is off Powerline Road, 19th Street in that area in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And vaccinations are going to begin at Holiday Park. That site will open up and will look busy on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those are people that are either transferred in from other sites already with appointments or medical first responders. To anybody wanting a vaccine, a reservation appointment time can be gained by visiting browardcovidvaccine.com. That's browardcovidvaccine.com. That is the one way to be able to schedule an appointment. That site is not working at this moment. It is down and they have it closed because they've released all the available appointments that they had. But at the time it was up, it did not include Holiday Park. I anticipate in the next day or so, we will see it open up for Holiday Park reservations. And that will be the one location to go, any person of the public age 65 and older for a COVID vaccine. So those are the two sites that we know for certain at this point. We're working, Mr. Mayor, on an additional vaccine site in Fort Lauderdale, but more information on that forthcoming.
Okay, so it's sort of good news and not as good news. We're hoping to get those sites working and trying to ensure as many people get vaccinated as possible, as soon as possible. Is there any further business of the commission? Mr. Boileau, do you have any? Nothing? Okay, any member of the commission have anything further to discuss? Okay, there being nothing further, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.